Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today from wherever you may be. I'm Rosemary Teege, Claris Community Engagement Manager, and your host for today's Introducing Custom Connectors webinar. The team has prepared their insights and demonstrations to highlight the new functionality in Claris Connect. We have an action-packed session today, so let's get started. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Sangita Banerjee, Product Manager of Claris Connect. Sangita, take it away.
Thank you, Rosemary, and hello everyone. I'm excited to talk to you today about our recent launch of Claris Connect. It's great to reconnect with you all. We have lots to share, but first, let's take a look back. It's been more than 3 years since we launched Claris Connect. We are putting more investment into the platform so that our developers can continue to deliver more powerful integrations. Connect, as you may already know, is our integration platform which helps to automate workflow by connecting your custom apps with third-party apps and systems, both on-prem and on cloud. It allows you to quickly build the workflow via a point-and-click interface. With Connect, you can automate manual repetitive tasks and save time to focus more on your critical business problems. Besides the rich capabilities of the platform, I would like to quickly go over the infrastructure benefits. If you had to do this without Claris Connect, it is possible to do so with our FileMaker Data API. However, you need to write custom code and also invest on middleware tools and technologies to integrate with third-party services. And on top of that, for each API, you need to deal with so many aspects like authentication, authorization, monitoring, logging, data formats, security, maintenance, error handling, and rate limiting, just to name a few. Instead, you can rein on operational cost while Claris Connect does all the heavy lifting. Being cloud native, it is highly secured and scalable. It is also SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. And you have the support of an enterprise-grade team that's working 24/7 to protect the infrastructure and your data. Besides Claris, we have a large community of developers and partners worldwide to help you on your journey. Now, here are some recent updates. We just launched our first version of Custom Connector. We'll talk more in a bit. We also released some of the pre-built connectors, including QuickBooks Sandbox Connector, that will now allow developers to test their financial workflows in Sandbox account before moving it to production account. As part of 20.2 release of FileMaker, developers will have a more cohesive experience between FileMaker and Connect with the new enhanced script step in Pro. It will allow developers to trigger a Connect flow from Pro by simply selecting the workflow that has already been built in Connect. Earlier, to trigger the same flow, developers had to go through scripting over a dozen operations. And now, it is being reduced to a couple of clicks while we take care of the rest. For the pre-built connectors, we also added Azure AD, Jira, and AI connectors like Clarify so that you can build AI-driven innovative workflow while leveraging data from various sources. You can try all these new exciting features, including Custom Connector, with our Claris Connect free tier. Yes, you heard me right. It has no guardrails on features. We have thousands of customers who have already signed up. If you haven't tried Connect yet, I would highly encourage you to sign up today and start building few flows. As you get more production ready, you may hit the limit of 500 flow steps and consider moving to FileMaker Plus tier. Speaking of FileMaker Plus tier, our developers have been busy building complex production flows in this tier with an average of approximately 1400 flow steps, where over 90% of the flows are connected to FileMaker on one end and to third-party apps on the other end. Some of the top apps being Slack, Twilio, MailChimp, Typeform, Google Calendar, Google Worksheet, Box, QuickBooks, and more. As we continue to enrich our pre-built connectors library, we understand that you may need some domain-specific connectors to solve your business problems faster, that may not be available in our library. So to give more power to our developers, we have opened up our platform so that they can build their own custom connectors with our easy to use JSON editor. Our partners and developers are as much excited as we are, and here are some of the quotes from our community. As you can see, our community is thinking about using custom connectors for building FileMaker specific solutions, as well as help clients achieve their custom workflow goals. Now I'm going to read out one. This is from Mark LaRochelle from Productive Computing. Whenever you provide a mechanism for the community to do their own thing, the technology is typically embraced and amazing things are built. We can't wait to see what our community will build with custom connectors. We'll hear more about it from Ronnie Rios. As you can see, Connect plays a very important role in our platform. We'll continue investing into custom connectors and other third-party apps and services to create hybrid data flow with FileMaker. To extend the benefits across our platform, we'll also invest into some internal platform connectors. For example, FileMaker Admin API connector that will allow database admins to automate their tasks for FileMaker server on-prem and on cloud, like changing database status, uploading files, and more. Now, this will help admins to save time and focus more on critical problems. They can also use the inbuilt features of Connect to create more innovative workflows. Next, similar to FileMaker connector, we'll also have a Studio connector that will allow you to trigger a flow in Connect when data changes in Studio, like on-record creation, updates, and can send notifications for approvals to complete the task. Both FileMaker connector and Studio connector will help to create a unified experience for our platform and provide better visibility into your workflows. Thank you, everyone. And now I would like to hand the presentation over to my friend and colleague, Ronnie Rios, to demo our new custom connector feature.
Thank you, Sangita, and hello, everyone. I am really excited to be here to talk to you today about what is now my favorite feature of Claris Connect, custom connectors. We've been working really hard on this for quite some time, and I can't wait to show it to you. So let's jump right in. I want to start saying that custom connectors is not just about building connectors. It's really about being able to craft tailored integration experiences. You see, with custom connectors, you're no longer limited to the pre-built library of connectors that we have. If you have a unique action or specific feature that you need, now you can define and implement that yourself. And we know that the software ecosystem out there is very diverse. So whether or not you need to integrate with a popular regional application, or maybe there's an in-house tool, or there's a particular software that's unique to your industry, now with custom connectors, you have a method to create reusable integrations very quickly and very easily. And let's be honest, waiting for a connector to be available is not fun. And sometimes that means also delays and even being forced to implement manual workarounds. Now you no longer have to wait or even wish for a connector to be developed. You can create your own and start optimizing your workflows right away. Now, I'm going to take you a little bit back to when we started building custom connectors. We actually debated really long and hard on how was the best way to bring to you the most powerful and flexible tools that wouldn't require deep coding knowledge. We realized that actually that we could expose the same tool set that we use internally to build our connectors to you. So you see, we don't actually code every single connector from scratch. We actually describe those using JSON. We follow a particular schema that we have, particular structure, and that JSON gets interpreted by very optimized code. So with custom connectors, you don't need to learn a brand new programming language or any programming language for that matter. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to code at all. Connectors are defined completely in JSON, which also makes them very portable and very easy to share as well. We also didn't want you to have to download anything. So we made sure that everything that you might need to create connectors is already inside of Claris Connect. And that includes a built-in interactive editor with the ability to validate, find errors, and even suggest fixes for those errors. You can also find tools for testing things like the authentication and individual actions. It allows you to see the data, how it's being sent and the responses back from the API. And to help you with the learning, we've even included several sample connectors in there so you can start using those, getting up and running really quickly. You can customize them and obviously, again, learn from them and get your learning process a lot faster. So with all that in mind, the basic knowledge requirements for creating custom connectors really just boils down to have some basic knowledge of JSON, the API that you're trying to integrate with, knowing what HTTP requests are, and understanding the authentication and authorization methods of the API that you want to talk to. So with that, I want to dive right in and show you how custom connectors can help you build your own connectors very quickly and easily. So to start using custom connectors, we've exposed it directly in a new tab that you'll find in Claris Connect. When you click on this new tab, you'll find all the connectors that you and your team have built or are working on. Those connectors that you're still working on will have a little label on top that says draft. That means you haven't published it yet and you're still going back and forth, making modifications to it and still enhancing and still building it. If you want to create a brand new connector, you click on the button here on the top left to create a brand new connector. This brings you to the custom connector editor. And to get you started, we have a sample kind of JSON definition for a connector, but I want to talk a little bit about the features of the editor. The editor is pretty smart. It actually knows the data types and the different properties of the JSON and will even identify errors and help you fix it. So for example, here is expecting a string. I can put in, say, double quotes here at the beginning. It's identified that's the error. If I hit the return key, it'll actually put the double quotes here at the end. The editor also understands complete JSON, so it can validate the JSON. So if I break anything here as far as the JSON and it becomes invalid, it'll let me know and tell me where I might be able to fix this. It also is aware of the structure of the data, of the structure of the JSON. So it knows the different properties and the value types of those properties and will help me even type ahead and suggest things that I might want to use as the property name or even the values of those properties. So this makes it very easy and convenient for me to write, to make modifications to a connector or to write it from scratch. But I don't have to start from scratch. We took several of our library connectors and made them available to you here as custom connectors definition. So I can choose any one of those and you can see how these connectors were built. So you can learn from them how we define the interaction with the API and compare those to different APIs. You can look at them, you can use these as starting points for other APIs, you can have them point to other APIs, or you can use them to create your own custom version of these existing connectors here as well. And at any point, you can go ahead and test the connector and different features of it. So for example, I'm going to test here the authentication. And not only can I see the response back from the API, but I can see what Claris Connect sent over there and how it formatted the data, which is as important as the response. The same thing happens with the individual actions. I can see how these actions are represented, how they're rendered, and how it would look like for the end user when they start using it in a flow. And once again, I can see both the request and the response back from the API that will help me figure out if there are any issues. At this point, I can still go back out here and come back in and make any modifications. I do not have to write the connector in one session. So I can come in here, still modify it, and make changes. Anybody on my team can come in here and continue working on this. But if we're ready, if we feel like we've tested this enough, we can go ahead and publish this connector. And when we do, you'll see that it no longer says draft, but I can still come in here. I can still open this connector up, look at its definition. I can even copy the JSON definition of this connector so I can share it with others in the community, or maybe save a copy of it or use it as the starting point for a new connector. But this connector is now completely available. I can go into my flow editor and add it in here. We've created this new section here in the list of connectors just for custom connectors, so you can find those connectors you're building a lot easier. And you notice here how the behavior of this connector is exactly the same as if any other built-in connector. Even the way that interacts and accepts data, you can use step data, you can even test it within the flow editor just like you would with any other connector that we've built. As quickly as that, we've built a connector and started using it immediately in a flow just in a matter of minutes. And believe it or not, even with all these features, we are really just getting started. This is just version 1, and we're already hard at work to bring new enhancements to custom connectors. Things like support for OAuth authentication is a very popular authentication method for a lot of the APIs that are out there. We also want to bring the ability to quickly and privately share custom connectors across teams, so you don't even have to copy and paste the JSON as right now. You'll be able to do it from within Claris Connect. I want to give you also the ability to make changes to a connector that has already been published and maybe already being used inside of flows. Also want to give you the ability to customize even further your connectors by adding your own icon and the power to leverage webhooks from third-party APIs to create your own triggers. Once again, I am really excited about this amazing new addition to Claris Connect and can't wait to see what you all do with it. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Rosemary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie, for that fantastic overview of the power of custom connectors. Before we get to the Q&A, I want to let you know that Claris will be hosting an in-depth custom connectors workshop on October 11th, featuring Ronnie. This interactive session will deliver practical instruction on integrating third-party APIs, equipping you with the tools you need to link crucial applications and services more effectively. Eligibility for the workshop is easy. You just need to be a Claris Connect customer under active license. If you're not a Claris Connect customer, you have until September 30th to get on board. Watch for an email from us with more details. You may have heard about our new certification courses for Claris Connect. These short courses offer a great opportunity to invest in your career and professional growth, and they're free in the Claris Academy. Today we have both associate and specialist levels live on the community. To learn more, go to www.claris.com/certification. And now it's time to answer your questions. If you haven't done so already, please enter your questions for the team in the Q&A, and we will answer as many as time allows. We also ask you please to take a few minutes and complete the brief survey that will appear after this event concludes. Your feedback helps us improve our products and webinars. Thank you. Thanks again, Ronnie and Sangita. We've had questions rolling in, so let's get started. So first, lots and lots of people are asking generally about using Claris Connect with an on-premise FileMaker server. So can you just give an overview of how you set that up and then what's possible once you've done that?
Sure. So one of the great things is that your custom connectors in general work as just like any other connectors. And it means you can use them in a flow combining with other connectors that we already have. Now, we already have connectors for FileMaker Server on-prem, and FileMaker Cloud. So to create a flow that integrates data from third-party applications and systems that you're doing with custom connectors, and then a FileMaker Server that's on-prem, all you have to do is just use the FileMaker on-prem connector that we already have and configure it to communicate with your own on-prem solutions. The on-prem, the difference between the server and the regular server connector and the on-prem one is that the on-prem leverages our on-prem agent, and that helps help Claris Connect communicate with your on-prem systems without having to make any modifications to your network. So you won't have to open any holes into your firewall or make any crazy configurations. Install a software that allows you to communicate securely and very quickly with Claris Connect.
Thanks. And I'll just add a plug again for the Claris Academy. Claris Connect Specialist course covers connecting between FileMaker Server, on-prem, and in cloud in pretty great depth. So that's a great resource if you just want to see someone set it up. And then once you're connected, does that mean you can connect, say, QuickBooks and FileMaker, or FileMaker to WordPress? I think those are the first two questions there.
Yeah. So yes, and depends. So we already, like I said, we already have existing connectors for, in this case, for both QuickBooks, we have for FileMakers, and we have for WordPress. Now, if the question is about using custom connectors to create connectors for, say, QuickBooks and WordPress, then it depends a little bit on a couple of things. For WordPress, it'll depend on which endpoints you're using and certain configuration. For QuickBooks specifically, QuickBooks uses the OAuth type of authentication. So we are actually right now starting testing on those on our ETS. And so we'll be releasing those, that capability shortly after release. So working on that. And so you will be able to create custom connectors for QuickBooks very soon.
Yes. And I just want to also clarify, there is already a QuickBooks connector.
We already have a QuickBooks connector, and our QuickBooks connector not only does it work really, really well with QuickBooks, but it also supports the sandbox environment that Intuit has. So you can use it to test first on a make-believe account. So you can test your flow, make sure that everything is running so you're not playing around with your real data, and then you can switch over from the sandbox environment to your production environment to make sure that everything is running and starts working the way it should.
So our next question, I think this one is for you, Sangita, and that is, where is Claris Connect hosted? Is it all in a US data center, or are there UK, European data centers and other global data centers with Connect?
So as you know, Claris Connect is just transfers the data. It's a messaging through across, passes the data from our apps to the other apps. So it is hosted in the hosted in US, but it can connect to apps everywhere, as well as in Europe or Japan. So Japan has also been using it. So yeah.
Okay. And next, this is probably for Ronnie, is how much control can a developer have over things like headers with custom connectors?
That's actually one of the reasons why we debated very long on how to build custom connectors, and because we wanted to make sure that you had as much power, right, as much control over the environment while making it still easy. So by going this route, we were able to expose a lot of the functionality that we use internally, which we have to do. We have to configure for very specific headers and things like that. So you have control over doing things like custom headers, setting up the body in particular ways, including parameters both in the URL or in the body as JSON. So you have a lot of these things available to you without the need to actually learn JavaScript or anything like that.
Okay. Next question, how can we share custom connectors with the community right now? You want to take that, Ronnie?
Sorry, repeat that again.
How can developers share custom connectors with the community?
This was another one of the reasons why we went the route with JSON. JSON being so portable and easy to share makes it it makes it just a perfect way for people to take and share with the community. You literally could just email a connector over to somebody. You could copy your connector, the definition, email, and somebody could just copy and paste it into their own environment, and they'll be able to replicate the exact same connector that you have built. We've already seen people in the community already post connectors online in blog posts and their own site and articles, but you could use you could use the tools that you use for any other things. Like you can use Git repositories and post those there and maintain version controls and things like that and share that. The possibilities really are endless because JSON is so portable and so easy to share. You really just possibilities are endless on how to share it.
Great, thanks. And I'll just add a plug that we've seen lots of sharing and even tutorials on, how I wrote this shared connector on Claris community. And I updated the front page blog roll of the community to some of the great content community members published last week. So if you just go to community.claris.com, you'll see examples of how people are sharing connectors. Where are credentials stored for Claris Connect and custom connectors?
Yeah. So your custom connectors work in the exact same way as our built-in connectors. So the credentials that we store, which by the way, for the most part, we never really store credentials. We store refresh keys, token keys, tokens. So they're stored. We've got a very secure environment for storing those tokens in there. Custom connectors work the same way. They leverage the exact same infrastructure that we have built for our own internal, our own created library of connectors. So they leverage the exact same infrastructure, use the exact same security, the same audit and requirements that we face with everything else. You get to use those there as well. And going forward later on, when we implement OAuth, your private keys and things like that will also be stored in the exact same fashion. So you'll leverage the exact same infrastructure that we use.
And to add to that, we use cloud native architecture, and so we're using AWS. So, and our data is encrypted at rest with 256-bit encryption, as well as in transit with the TLS 1.2 over 1.2 plus, and as well as we use the AWS key management system on top of it. So it's highly secured.
Next question is just generally about the cost of Claris Connect. And rather than kind of going through all the various options, because we'd probably give you US dollars and we have a global audience, we've just dropped a link to the Claris Connect pricing page in the Q&A. So you can just grab that directly and check out pricing for your region. I think the key thing is there's a special pricing tier for adding Claris Connect to an existing FileMaker contract. And then there are some additional pricing options beyond that. Next, and does connectors work in different modes, like read-only, read-write, data entry only? I think this is probably talking about with a FileMaker application. Or are the permissions for what can be done in a database controlled by the FileMaker database security?
So it's mostly the latter. So if you're communicating with FileMaker, we respect all the permissions set in your FileMaker solution, especially those that are set up through kind of the roles of those who have access to the data API. So we follow the exact same permission. You have the same privilege sets to speak in FileMaker, same privilege sets, and we'll respect that. So whatever you set up there, what the connector will have access to.
Yep, and I'll add again, that's covered in great detail in the Claris Connect specialist course on Claris Academy. Are there any predefined connectors or a collection of connectors that developers can use?
Yeah, so for custom connectors, we thought that one of the best ways to learn how to build custom connectors to actually look at some examples or things that are already out. So we took several of our existing connectors. So things like we have the Crunchbase connector, the OpenAI, WordPress, Google Maps, Google Translate, Shopify, and several others. And we've made them available as custom connectors. So when you go into the editor, you'll be able to look at them, you see them, you can use them, you can modify them to make your own custom version of those. So you can make your own custom version of the Shopify connector, for example, or you can modify them and change the API that they're using. Instead of using the Shopify, maybe the API that you're talking to is similar to the Shopify one, and you can just make changes, change the URLs, and make a brand new connector out of them. And we'll continue to add more of those. As time goes by, we're going to take, hopefully we want to take as many, if not all of our existing connectors and make them available as custom connectors. So you will not be limited to what we have and what actions we have in our library of connectors. So you'll be able to make your own versions of those connectors there as well.
Another question about, I think, data center locales, and that is, are there plans, or are we evaluating hosting Connect data centers outside the US? Just because even though the database is only in transit and we never store it, that does make European customers nervous.
Sangita, you want to answer that, or I can take a shot? So yeah, the short answer is yes, that is something that we are looking into. There are a lot of things that we have to evaluate before we open up availability in other regions. But yes, we hear you loud and clear. We've got a lot of our customers in Europe and also in Asia, and so we're evaluating what that looks like for Claris Connect and the rest of the Claris platform, for that matter.
Sorry, there was some technical issue, so I couldn't.
Yeah.
Audio did not come through. So yes, that's just to re-emphasize Ronnie's point. That's the case. We are evaluating.
Okay, thank you. And I see one more question, so I'm going to make this the last call for questions before I ask it. So this is your last chance. And there's a question again, going back to integrations with FileMaker. Is there full integration between Custom Connect and WebDirect applications?
Short answer is yes. Because what you're using is the data API, it'll be compatible with any of the modes or any of the clients in the FileMaker platform. So, yep, absolutely.
All right, and I'm just seeing, like, we're getting a lot of comments back about European data centers. So we hear you. We'll take feedback back. Yes. And prioritize it with everything else. And so with that, I just want to thank again Ronnie and Sangita for sharing all these great Claris Connect updates, and thank all of you for joining us today. We really appreciate you and appreciate the community. So please check out the community, check out the resources we've already shared that have been created by community members. And one last time, please take the 4 or 5 minutes to complete the survey. It really does help us improve both our webinars and our products. And we hope to see you at the workshop in a couple of weeks.